again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you this evening on the Mike Francesa channel on the Bet Rivers Network on YouTube after another crazy October afternoon. Now, all year, during the slow times, during the summer months, at different times of the year, we talk about October. Well, this is exactly what you get when your city is alive in October. The Mets play another crazy game with the Phillies. And again, as I've told you, how hard it is to get outs, no matter who you are, no matter what your status is, how hard it is to get those final outs in these games. And you've seen it. How many times has it manifested itself in the last week? Time and time and time again. Are you surprised now when somebody comes up and hits the two-run homer, or somebody comes up and gets a big base hit and gets his team right back in the game? It happens inning after inning after inning. Doesn't do that in the regular season. Hey, these are pressure cooker moments, and you see it time and time again. And at the same time, you have the Giants playing a whale of a game that it looks like they are going, unfortunately, to go to overtime against a Seattle team that really got a big break early in the game and sleptwalked through a lot of the game. And what happens, you see, and incredibly, I mean, I first thing I'm waiting for is a flag to see that he illegally leapt over the offensive lineman, which he didn't. But Simmons blocks the field goal, and we know what happens. They run it back for a touchdown, and away we go. And the Giants get a win, a much-deserved win. They outplayed Seattle today. A much-deserved win with guys on the bench, with key figures not playing today, getting a big lift, getting a good pass rush. They rushed the quarterback today and did a very good job in that regard. They got a good performance overall from Daniel Jones, from wide receiver, from a lot of different places today. And they get a very important win. So for them, good day in a league that is just so bizarre. I mean, if you watch these games, the Raven game, Ravens are going to win. They fumble the ball. Cincinnati's going to win. They fumble the snap. Ravens wind up winning. You go back, you go forth, you go forth, you go back. Cardinals win in San Francisco. Now, I know the Niners are banged up, but they win there. Okay. Now the Broncos, with a kid quarterback, have turned around and knocked off 3 straight wins with their win today. You just over and over. How about what Flacco did today? I don't expect you to be paying that much attention to the Colts, but I mean, Jacksonville needed a win in the worst way. They were up 14 points with 5 minutes left, and Flacco scores 2 touchdowns. Bink, bink, throws for almost 400 yards. I mean, he looks. How good does he look? I mean, you look at the Jet offense, and you look what Flacco was doing this afternoon, just carving it up 50 yards, 60 yards, 60 yards, 50 yards. It's crazy what's going on in that league, where there are very, very few good teams. What Buffalo did at the end of regulation, sometimes you wonder about what's going through these coaches' heads to lose a game to Houston. And then, of course, to the Mets. A game that they have under control, and then the 2-run homer by Harper, the back-to-back. It's now 3-3. Nimmo gets them back out in front, and you're saying, look at the magic. And then, of course, he tries something different with Diaz. I give him an A for effort there. I understand what he was thinking. I got 2 guys I have to find a way to get out. I don't want Schwarber to take a ball out of the ballpark. And he is owned by Diaz. And Harper's 2 for 15 against Diaz. What I didn't like, and he wasn't going to get Diaz to finish that game. You know that. And he hit 35 pitches, maybe even 30, but 35 at the most. He was going to take him out of the game. But what I didn't like was the approach to Harper. In a one-run game, hey, you have to attack him. Your star reliever is in the game. There's nobody he passes. Nobody. He's 2 for 15. Harper lifetime against Diaz. I understand they're both home runs. Let him tie the game up. Don't put him on base because once you put him on base, you change everything. Now a single turns it into a rally. So to me, I didn't understand that approach at all. You know what? If you have Diaz in there, there's nobody Diaz should be passing and pitching around in any spot. No way. I mean, it's just didn't make any sense. All right, that backfires, and you figure, hey, at least the Mets are coming home 1-1. And then you say, hey, if you're the Phillies, you just realize maybe you can win some games with your bats, but you just can't get the Mets out in a big spot. And Vientos, who has stamped himself with this season and now with this postseason as one of the dynamic young power hitters in the sport, takes a pitch that is, up in his eyes and knocks it out of the park for his second home run of the game. I mean, what a remarkable performance. And then, of course, we know what happened from there. Again, as I tell you all the time, it's always around a walk. There's always go back and trace them all. There's always a walk involved. Sure, there's home runs involved, but there's always a walk involved in these rallies. And the Mets, hey, if I had told you, before the playoffs, before this series started, you're going to get a split in Philadelphia, you would have said, where do I sign? No question about it. And you've really shown that they don't have any answers for the Mets in the late innings. That the Mets basically right now own the Philly bullpen in the late innings. That's all there is to it. Right now, they own it lock, stock, and barrel. And that's not a bad way to go. They have Lindor, who continues to hit. They have Vientos red hot. They have Nimmo getting big hits. And now you got Pete hitting home runs again. So they are in a very, very solid spot right now. I understand you're getting a little greedy, rolling along at 3-0. It's a quiet ballpark. And you're thinking, give me a rocking chair game. Let me get back to Citi Field 2-0. Hey, then I'm thinking about, the NLCS. It's never going to be that easy. Never going to be that easy. It just isn't. That's not the way the playoffs are built. For a reason, that's not the way the playoffs are built. These teams have a comeback ability. And in baseball, what makes it so special in the postseason is I don't care what the clock says. You can't hold the ball and run the clock out. You got to register 27 outs and getting the last 9, then the last 6, and then the final 3 is really, really hard. As I've said to you so many times, it makes you appreciate the great postseason relievers you've seen who you could count on. Nobody was 100%. Mariano was in his own league. We know that. But that's what made it so special because it is so difficult to do. It is so hard to get those pressurized outs. And this Met lineup just never says die. Now, hey, the Mets have got big problems in their pen too. They don't have a lot of places to go when they're starters, and they're going to be discussing this in the next couple of days. The Phillies are, the Mets are. Hey, what can we do to get a couple of more easy outs here in these last couple of innings with a lead. What can we possibly do? Because it's not working. And it sure isn't working. And you see it time and time. I mean, you're surprised now when somebody doesn't score. That's how it is. And it doesn't get easier as these games get more meaningful and you get deeper into the series. It gets more dramatic. It gets more pressurized. And already in a couple of games, you've seen what can happen. You've seen, 2 games turn on a dime. Wheeler for 7 innings just dominating. And then boom. So, today, just a pitcher dealing. He's got a 3-0 lead. Next thing you know, boom, boom, boom. And the game's tied. That's what happens in these games. They turn on a dime. And now, hey, like I said, if you take it in the big picture, all you could have expected against a team that is deservingly the favorite was to come back 1-1. I understand you had dreams there for a couple innings on a Sunday afternoon of a rocking chair afternoon and going 2 up and coming home and only needing 1 game to move to the NLCS, but hold the phone. It's not going to come that easy. And now they have some life in their lineup because their guys have gotten some big hits. Just like the Met guys have gotten plenty of big hits. Big hit after big hit after big hit. There's magic in that Met lineup right now. There really is. So a day off for the Mets tomorrow. Be back in action on Tuesday. Yankees will be in action from the stadium trying to see if they can take what would be deemed a, commanding lead by going 2 up. And the football Giants get a much needed, really hard fought win. A good win, a solid win today in Seattle, which is not an easy place to play. They get the Bengals next Sunday night. Next week is prime time week for the Jets and the Giants. The Giants will be taking on Cincinnati, which lost a heartbreaker today. Had a huge offensive game. Chase with a huge game. T. Higgins with a huge game. The quarterback with a huge game. The defense with another awful effort. And really a hard to take loss. Had a 10-point lead late. That was erased. Had it looked like the game iced off the fumble. They didn't get the snap down on the hold for the field goal, and he missed it. And then they come down, win the game. So the Bengals are 1-4 and highly desperate, and they get the 2-3 Giants on Sunday night. And then the Jets, who have lost back-to-back just awful games to the Broncos and to the Vikings, respectively, are 2-3, and get the Bills, who lost their second straight game today and lost it in crushing fashion because the coach really did a poor job. He did a incredibly poor job with what he did today. At the end of the game, made no sense. And Allen got banged up a little bit, but nothing's going to keep him out of the lineup. You know that. The Giants today got big performance from Slayton. 8 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown. They got a terrific performance from Tracy. 18 for 129. Jones threw for 257 and 2 touchdowns. Also ran the ball 11 times. A lot of them by design for 38 yards. So they got it in a lot of places. Tight end Johnson had 5 catches. The defense came up really big. Lawrence with a huge day today. 3 sacks. Burns with a sack. 7 sacks in all. A lot of pressure. Did a nice job. And let's be honest, they kept Geno on the run. Kept Geno on the run all day. Did a very good job against Walker, who had killed Detroit the other night. Geno obviously made some crazy runs. Lockett made a couple of big plays. They have a lot of explosiveness. They kept Metcalf under control today. And if not for that first quarter, he didn't score, and then he fumbled, and it's returned 102 yards for a touchdown instead of that 14-point swing. This 29-20 win could have been even easier. So it was a good, it was a good, solid win for the Giants. Yeah, you have to be very, very elated with that performance today. That was a step in the right direction. It really was. It's not an easy place to play. It's not a great team, but it's a dangerous team. You had Neighbors out. You had Singletary out. You got some guys to step up and do some good things. You got a solid performance from Daniel Jones. So you got a huge play at the end of the game to block the field goal. 7 sacks overall, a great performance from Lawrence. I mean, so a very, very good performance by the Giants today in every way. The league is just, let's be honest, the league is just nuts right now. It really is. I mean, the Vikings are 5-0, and they're fortunate to be 5-0 today. The Saints the Chiefs get the Saints tomorrow night, and they're unbeaten, but 3 of their 4 games could have gone the other way, but they have that knack of doing what needs to be done at the end of games. San Francisco is 2-3. Bengals are 1-4. The Browns are 1-4, and Washington is 4-1. 4-1. Who would have thunk it? 4-1, and have not only bought in, they're ready to build a statue to their new quarterback. I mean, there's no more teams in the league that haven't won because the Jaguars, who blew a 14-point lead in the last 4 minutes. I mean, if you talk about whether or not a coach was close to getting bounced out of there, Jacksonville had a 14-point lead looking for their first win. Colts don't have their wonderful running back in Taylor. Richardson's out. Flacco's in. And they're up 14 points with 5 minutes left. Flacco takes 3 plays to make it 34-27. Trevor Lawrence takes less than 1 minute off the clock. And then Flacco gets the ball back. He hands the ball to Sermon, who goes 18 yards on a first down. And then he throws it to Pierce for 65 yards and a touchdown. So he scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to tie the game in about 5 plays. And for the game, this is Flacco, who we all thought was done a couple of years ago. 33 of 44 for 359 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interception. Aaron Rodgers would take that game right now. 359 and 3. 33 of 44 for 359 and 3. And no picks. I mean, the league has at least a couple of times every Sunday scratching your head. It does. And all of a sudden, you flip a switch after a couple of weeks where the offenses dominate, and now, I mean, when the defenses dominate, now all of a sudden the offenses come roaring out. And you get some of these crazy games where there's a ton of points. We'll see if that continues in October, but right now, there are very few good teams. There's a lot of teams with a lot of weaknesses. And listen, Kansas City deserves to be right here. And although it was a game they should have lost, Baltimore did win that game, and they're a dangerous 3-2 team. They've got to get a lot better on defense. They're rebuilding a coaching staff on defense. They're rebuilding a lot of personnel on defense. They're rebuilding personnel on the offensive line. They have to get better, but they have a core. I told you the two teams that I could see making a leap are the Ravens and the Packers. The Packers held off the Rams today. The Rams have so many injuries, and they won. And that was with Love throwing interception that you have to take a look at. Just make sure you go take a look at the Love interception. The league's a little screwy, but hey, that's the way it is now. The ball bounces all over the place. Teams up, teams down, teams up, teams down. It's very, very much week to week. Right now, like we said, the Mets get a day off. They come back after a wild back and forth affair. But they're 1-1. And if they can play well at home, they can earn themselves a trip to the NLCS. We'll see what happens. We know it's not going to be easy. We know there's going to be some crazy late innings. We've already seen some crazy late innings. We're going to see more. I don't think there's any question about that. There's a lot of guys getting banged up around the league, a lot of guys getting hurt around the league. So a bunch of guys go down today. Seems to be like that almost every week. Now, for you Yankee fans, the Yankees will be back in action tomorrow. They will play at 7:30 tomorrow night. We will be with you after they put that one in the books and see if they can get a 2-game lead. Tigers and Cleveland play at 4:00. The Royals and the Yankees play at 7:38. And if you're looking for them, because you got to look all over the place, but they'll be on TBS tomorrow. Mets were on MLB today on a football. I mean, on Fox, not on MLB, on Fox Sports 1 today on a football Sunday. So they bounce these games all over the place. How do you expect baseball to get a national TV impact of any import in the postseason when the NFL is on Fox and the Major League playoffs are on Fox Sports 1? Now, I understand the economics of the issue, and we understand how big the NFL is compared to any other sport. It's not even anything worth discussing, but it just shows you what has happened to baseball when it is on in the playoffs, Fox Sports 1, and they're obviously showing their regular football action on CBS and Fox. Let me say one other thing about these networks when it comes to these baseball games. I meant to say this the other night, and I wrote it down to to mention it, and I forgot. Hey, I understand that, and I've been around television. I was around television production for a long time. I worked at the network for a very long time in my younger days, and I understand about advancing the coverage, whether it's anything new from a technological standpoint, using some new bells and whistles, whether it's a replay machine or another camera or a different camera or something that enhances sound or a different graphic or a different Chiron machine. I understand all that. But remember what is important: the game. The other night, they go to the dugout to interview the guy in the Met Milwaukee game who hits the home run, and we miss the out in the ninth inning. I mean, that happened that night in the Met Milwaukee game, and I saw it again either yesterday or the day before, where they were late getting back to the live action because they're giving you this inane interview. No, those interviews during the game, which I find completely out of place, without question, imposing on the player or the manager, and they offer nothing. Do the game. You got plenty of time before the game, after the game. If the manager wants to stop by for his 2 questions in the 3rd inning, fine. Nothing comes of that either. But the bottom line is, don't ever, ever miss a ninth inning at bat because you're basically asking a question of a guy who had a home run the inning before. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And that's what it's come to. They try to jam too much into that game. I'm watching an NFL game today, and they go to the sideline for a report that is a report you would give if the game was a 17 to 21 point blowout in the 3rd quarter, where you got to unload your C and D stuff. This was a pivotal play in the 4th quarter, and they're going and we're getting an anecdote about the player. Give me a break. That's not what you're supposed to do. Nobody in the world cares. They care about the live action. They don't care about your little story that you prepared on Friday that you have to get in. That it's gonna kill you if you didn't get this nugget in there. All right, you know what? If it's 42-0 and Nebraska's beating Rutgers, which didn't happen yesterday, but if somebody's beating somebody 42-0, unload every little vignette you can find. You're trying to hold whatever the audience is left, and I understand that. In a close game, let the game carry the action. That's why it's on. I mean, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Don't overdo it. Less is more from the announcers in terms of production. Just make your salient points. Hopefully, the play-by-play guy can add to the drama with his abilities. And, okay, let it play. The games are great. You don't need to enhance it. Just follow the bouncing ball. It'll take you where you want to go. And by the way, kudos to Howie. His Alonso call was great. It was great. Howie's a tremendous play-by-play guy, and that call is an all-time classic. Really is. All-time classic. Good for him. And I would expect nothing less. We'll see you later.